Good morning, class 7. How are you guys doing? Great. I hope you all are doing good and fine, taking care of yourselves. Well, without much ado, let's just directly come to page number 71, SSC Tribal Communities, Chapter 8. Okay. Tribal communities, the tribes. The Santals, the Adivasis are called tribes. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So we'll come to know about this. I'll read through and we'll come to know and we'll see what is all this about. Okay, extensive reading in understanding it through as a story is much more easy to learn his story, that is history. The society underwent many changes during the medieval period. There were two types of societies. One was the caste-based society in which people were divided into high or low caste according to their birth, which we have known earlier. Now, there was a huge gap between the high and low caste groups. The other was the tribal society, which did not allow the caste rules laid down by the Brahmins. Now, the other was the tribal society, which did not follow the caste rules laid down by the Brahmins. Tribal societies were more equal in nature. They did not go with these rules of the Brahmins. They went with a normal equal nature. Tribal societies. We know very little about tribal societies and the groups of this period. This is because of several reasons. The tribal people did not keep written records. They preserved their customs and traditions orally. They were passed from one generation to the next by the word of mouth only. The tribal people did not easily let outsiders into their areas of habitation. Tribal people generally lived in remote areas such as dense forest, hills, mountains, deserts, which were extremely difficult to reach. As a result, outsiders hardly had any contact with them. It was due to their isolation that the tribals were able to evolve and preserve that distinct culture. No one could interfere with them. It's not allowed people. Still in Andaman, you cannot go to some people's, the Jarua tribe which is there. You cannot go inside that place. You're not allowed. People are not allowed. Even the government does not interfere with them. They have their own separate land, own separate hill, own separate island. They live there inside the jungle. If you go on to the National Geographic, you'll see a lot of tribes, Amazon and all this, who still live in the jungle and how they live and they are away from the society. No written records. Everything by the mouth, generation to generation is transferred. Occupations of these tribes. The tribal people were engaged in agriculture, herding and hunting and gathering. They depended on the natural resources of the region they lived in. Some tribes settled down in an area permanently, while the others led a nomadic lifestyle and moved from one place to another. Settled agriculturists remained in few number. There were also people following other professions, who travelled from place to place, selling their goods or entertaining people with songs and folk tales. Some tribal groups. There were many tribal groups. Each had its own distinct customs, beliefs and lifestyle. Small groups were small, some were very large and powerful and controlled a lot of territory. In the northwest, the Baluchi tribe was powerful. In Punjab, the Khokhars and the Ghakkars were the main tribes. In the western parts were the Bhils and the Kolis. In the central India, the Gonds controlled large territories. Towards the east, the Cheros, Mundas, Santhals, Khasis, Nagas and Ahoms were the main tribal groups. The Todas, Koragas, Maravars, Badagas and Vetars were the main tribes in the south. Life of the nomadic tribal groups. How did they live? We still have Khasis, we have Nagas, we have Santals everywhere. Santals are there in West Bengal still. I have visited few places. I have gone, I made friends with them, I have gone for dinner, they have called me, invited me on their functions, and they have this cock fight and all that, two cocks fight together, and then they have this mela or something which they happen. They invite me when I'm there. As my father was a very huge social worker, he's built colonies for them and all that. So they call me, invite me, I go and see. They respect a lot. I have known when I was in Ranchi, a lot of tribes are there. Ranchi, there are some tribes, they are doing very well, they are good in studies also, they are studying, they are working, nice guys. Most of the tribal people were nomads, they moved about with their animals. When the supply of food of these animals got exhausted in the area, they moved to another area. They exchanged milk, honey, wool, ghee and so on with the settled agriculturists for grain and various other products. Bartering system was to go on. You have read about the Banjaras, the gypsies, Banjaras in the previous lesson. They can be called nomadic or traveling traders. They traveled with their families in big groups. Contemporary records tell us that they transported grain from villages to towns on bullock carts. They also reared and sold animals such as horses and cattle to people of the towns they visited. Changing nature of the tribal society, how it started changing. With time, tribal groups were exposed to new cultures. As a result, they slowly began to change their isolated lifestyle. Many of them began to lead a settled life and adopted better methods of agriculture. Many tribal customs, ceremonies and gods also became a part of the existing culture. During the medieval period, some tribes became dominant. Those that controlled the key trade routes and forest resources became very powerful. The Mughals tried to extract either taxes or services from these tribal people. The Gonds and the Ahoms were two tribal groups who established powerful independent kingdoms. They did not listen two hoots to anybody. You have to go through the jungle. Excuse me, get in touch with me. Okay, then jungle life which was there, they were slowly changing it, trying to do farming, agriculturing, getting more close to the society, having their own tribal customs, ceremonies and gods were all different, a part of their existing culture. But the Gonds and Ahoms were two tribal groups who established powerful independent kingdoms in these jungle areas. They tried to extract taxes from them, but it was of no use. Gonds. The Gonds are the most powerful tribal communities in central India. Probably comes from the word Telugu Konda, which means a hill. For an early time, they have been living in the upper Narmada Valley and the neighboring forest areas which had many hills. This region is also called Gondwana. Around the late 4th century, the Gond tribesmen began to organize themselves into groups. Several Gond kingdoms came up in Mughal times. According to the Akbarnama, Garh Katanga was one of the most powerful kingdoms of its times. One of the most towering personalities of the Gonds were Rani Durgavati. After the death of her husband, she began to rule as the regent of her minor son. Akbar offered her the choice of becoming a vassal of the Mughals and thus live peacefully. She, however, refused to acknowledge Akbar's overlordship. So in 1565, the Mughals attacked Garh Katanga. Rani Durgavati put up a stiff resistance and died fighting for the cause of her kingdom. Same as Rani Lakshmi Bai and Durgavati. She fought against Durgavati, fought against the Mughals, and Lakshmi Bai fought against the British. You have read that the tribal society was largely equal in nature. But when small clans joined together to form a kingdom, the situation changed. The Gond society got divided into many unequal social groups. The administrative system also changed due to meet the needs of larger kingdoms. It became more centralized. Kingdoms were divided into ghars. Each ghar was divided into numerous chaurasis, which were made up of 84 villages each. Each chaurasi was made up, chaurasi means 84 villages to one chaurasi. The chaurasi was further divided into barhots. Each barhat consisted of 12 villages. So 12 fours are 84. So 4 villages, 4 barhats, barhat. The Gond kingdoms were very rich. They exported elephants to other kingdoms including the Mughals. One of the reasons why Akbar decided to invade Garh Katanga was his desire to capture this resource of elephants. The Gonds practiced agriculture, but it was large, the jhum cultivation, which is there in your geography you will see, also called shifting cultivations or slash and burn. Most Gonds led a nomadic lifestyle. The Gond kingdoms survived for a long time but gradually lost their power. The Marathas defeated them and took over some of their territories. The English finally took over Gondwana in the 19th century. Okay. Come back in the next video.